So thanks for joining us here for what we're calling the EFCA West Student Ministries Collaborative. I don't know if that's a trendy term, but what we're trying to do is to kind of build a collaborative network so that we can kind of meet together. We've got these for elders and members of boards of directors. We've got these for student ministries. We have it for children's ministry staff, and we're actually talking about getting another group together for some of our people who like to do the deeper and deeper in-depth theological conversations that would make probably most of our heads spin. So my name's Bob Osborne. I'm the Director of Church Health for EFCA West, if we haven't met yet. On the call on my screen directly below me is Sochi Cashone from EFCA West. She's coordinating the call. She's going to keep an eye for me on things like people raising their hands in chats and stuff like that I blow right past because I get excited about just the stuff that we're talking about and sometimes miss that sort of stuff. What we want to do today is just spend some time together and talk about student ministry and some of the things that we're learning. I'll introduce Brandon in a minute. I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions, and then hopefully we'll all interact with his responses and the questions and those kinds of things as well. Just a couple of quick, kind of ground rule or information things. This is being recorded. And so if you want to see it again, you can do that or spread it around or have somebody else take a look at it. If you're sitting in for someone else, maybe on your team that might benefit from this, by all means, share it when you get the little email message that we send out sometime afterwards. That'll let you know that the YouTube is available. Hey, we like seeing your faces. So, but we don't require that because I know some of you need to hide because you have children or pets or dogs climbing all over you, or you're in, some place with a lot of background, visual background noise and that kind of stuff. But if you get a chance to pop the face there, that's actually pretty cool for those of us who are trying to present something, because we get just a little tiny smidgen of that body language thing where we can see if there's some connections and things like that going on. For chat, as long as we can see everybody, if we have the chat feature going, but if you want to jump in, as long as we can fit us all on one screen, which it looks like we can do for a couple minutes more, if you stick your hand up and wave it around not too frantically, we'll be able to see it and include you in the conversation. Mute is our friend unless we're trying to talk. That's always a cool thing. And then just one thing I always like to share when we get together, especially as we have people who might not have been on a previous call, is just to let you know that EFCA West is not just here for your pastors and boards. We're here for you. We want to serve really all levels of leadership. One of our main areas of emphasis, we really have three of them. One of them is church planning. One of them is spreading the gospel among all people and recognizing the allness of the all people. But the other thing is we call strengthening churches and their leadership community. And so the leadership community is a lot broader than just lead pastors. It's student ministry workers, children's workers, elders, board members. It could be key lay volunteers and that kind of stuff. But we're here to serve you as well. So, please, if you have questions about something, you want to talk credentialing, any of those kinds of things, feel free to reach out to any of us on the team. We're all easy to contact. It's our name, like I'm bob.osborne@efca.org. And then we're real easy to find on the website as well. I'd like to start this afternoon's conversation here by introducing very briefly Brandon Westfall. He's a high school pastor at Seacoast Church in Encinitas, California, one of our coastal communities. It's one of those places where you want to live, but you probably can't afford to buy a house. It's a great church. It's been there for quite a while. It's got some wonderful ministries. And I've asked Brandon to kind of be the guy that we interview today to kind of get our conversations going. And so as we're talking about stuff and asking questions, feel free to jump right on in and participate if you got something to share. We're here to collaborate together. That's why we use that word collaborative. And so Brandon, would you start just by letting people know a little bit about who you are and what you do and maybe how you got here, and then we'll jump into some of the questions.
Yeah, right on, man. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it, dude. Yeah, so this is year 13 of being a high school pastor for me. Absolutely love it. Was actually born and raised in the Midwest, and then moved to California in 2007 to full-time ministry, mainly all Northern California. Was in Orange County for a brief stint and went back to Northern California. I do have a heart for Northern California. It's a great spot. But it's kind of hard to beat Encinitas as well. Living right on the ocean is pretty sweet. But yeah, so this is what I love. So I've been in positions all the way from being a lead student pastor to a high school pastor, hiring staff, unfortunately firing staff before, but my heart beats for this. I love it. Doesn't mean I'm an expert at this. That's why it's fun to collaborate with you guys. Because what I've realized is sometimes people that have done this 2 years have a lot to offer. And sometimes, you get people that have done this for a few years and they're going, what do I bring to the table? And sometimes your ideas are the best. So that's just really fun. So just know that, man, you're in good company. I'm no better than you, just so you know. But I love it. We've been trying to be creative in what we're doing. Most recently, before this, I was up in the San Francisco Bay in a little town called Danville, where I was a lead student pastor overseeing a staff. Was awesome up there. And then came down here to Encinitas just almost a year ago today, June 3rd. So been the high school pastor here for, almost a year. So that's where I'm at. Oh, sorry.
I just say part of the fun with Brandon is he's been around. It's like so many of us. I'm one of those guys. I've been at the same church for 44 years now, and there are a lot of things you learn deeply when you're in one place for a long, long time. But there's also a lot to be gained from moving around some and getting some different experiences. So Brandon, I really appreciate that you bring that along. You ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's jump in, man.
Let's dive in the deep end, man. We serve churches in 7 states. We've got cities and suburbs and some very rural places as well. And so we're all kinds of stages of re-engaging in terms of meeting together in one place. We're kind of all over the map. Most people on this call are from Central and Southern California and Arizona. But we're still, beginning. Some places are beginning to open up. Some places have opened up some. Some places may well have never closed kind of the shop, on-site shop, and had to go virtual. So I'm just kind of curious, what are you hearing from your volunteers? What are you hearing from parents and students about re-engaging, together, gathering together in larger groups? What's going on there at Seacoast?
Yeah, no, like for us, we were California's been on that slow moving phase of reopening. Thankfully, San Diego, just yesterday got the green light to open up restaurants and retail stores again. So that's been encouraging to a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I'd say for the most part, about 75% of parents, volunteers, students are ready to come back. The one thing that we're trying to be very careful of, and this is just us, this is who we are. We're trying to be very careful to not be that church, if that makes sense. Like just saying, let's just reopen right now, just to be respectful of how the phases are developing. So far we have developed a 4-phase plan of how we are reopening right now and doing it slowly, like kind of step by step. And so high school ministry and junior high ministry is right now in phase 2. So we're not even the first to quite open up yet. But one of the advantages of being a coastal community is we're anticipating the next month at least, probably by June 15th, the beaches to open up. And that's probably where we could be doing a lot of our Wednesday night programming, is on a beach where we're spread out a little more, social distance a little more, but kind of changing up, not meeting on campus quite yet. But most parents are eager to get back. Students are eager because, there's been so much, and you guys probably are going through this where we've talked with families and students. So much has been taken away from them that at least down here, it's kind of sent students into that kind of dark spot a little bit where they're down, they're depressed. We've had 2 student suicides down here since this thing started. And it's just been a bummer, just seeing students get to that dark spot. And our senior pastor's son was even one of them who kind of was in that space of just really feeling depressed. And so we worked really hard at trying to meet students where they're at, but just due to that and just not being out so much and having so many restrictions on us, we had the beaches taken away for a while. It was just weighing heavy on the hearts of people in a beach community. So it's encouraging knowing that people want to get back and get things moving, but we do have those cautious people, which is totally okay, because we're telling people, like, if you're in that cautious end, that's okay. we're not trying to push you or rush you, because we have some families where one kid has an immune system like deficiency. And so for them, they're like, they don't want to send their other son out with us quite yet to even do things. So I totally understand that. And if you have grandparents in the home, then yeah, there's that hesitancy. Two of my HSM volunteers have young kids. And so they're kind of the ones that are going, we're not ready yet. So if we were to open tomorrow, they would not be comfortable coming back in a group of 50 plus with us to just hang out and do regular programming, which is totally understandable.
What kind of adjustments do you have to make because of that? For you, it's 25%. I've heard that, other churches, I've heard that split of, we're ready to come back and no, not yet, as being as high as 50%, like half want to play and half don't want to play.
Yeah.
What kind of adjustments are you making?
In our student ministry?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, a lot of our focus right now, even adults and then kind of moving into students as far as campus goes, we have very much focus on, we call them core groups, but a lot of people call them life groups, small groups. So a lot of ours has shifted into that small group setting. So we even said, if we come back to campus, we will be probably in different parts of the campus with each grade divided by gender, just doing our own kind of core group, small group stuff for a while as parents gain that more comfortable level of being together. Yeah, because we don't even know like how many we're going to be able to, is it going to be 10, 20, 50 can be in a room together as this thing opens up. So for us, that's kind of been our model for quite a while now, has been, we still do everything. I record my teachings on Sundays and then we play them back on Wednesdays. Students come. Thankfully, we have a number of students that come and their parents are totally cool with them leading worship still. So we'll get 5 students that are on stage getting recorded doing worship. So our program looks the same a little bit, but those personal touches, we make sure that I've tried to really implement my core group leaders to follow up weekly multiple times and check in with all their students, check in with the families to make sure they're doing okay. It's been like, hey, I wanted to really kind of equip them to be like mini youth pastors big time during this weird season, because those touches are still really crucial for students and their happiness and, just where they're at and making sure people feel cared for and valued during this time. So that's been a really big adjustment for us. Is I think our core group leaders do a good job anyway, but during this season, we let them know, like, you are going to be a critical part of a student's life during this time. And, our junior high ministry, they can actually go on and register for the junior high director to come over in social distance, but our junior high director will go over there and do one-on-ones with students and just kind of hang out. I do things a little different in high school, where we just started this game where I had gift cards all over town, and then they get hints to where they're at. Students go search for them and have fun, but it just gets them out of the home a little bit. So for us, it's a lot more community stuff, but it's really equipping core group leaders to kind of run with their core group. Most of them oversee about 10 to 15 students, and it's a lot of investment from core groups during this time.
Yeah, that's a high degree of investment for volunteers. To be able to reach out during the week to that many people, that's pretty cool. And I guess when you think about the community where you're at in Encinitas, a beach city, it's all about beach. And if you close the beach for 2 months, that just like rips your community identity away. It's just like,
absolutely.
Who are we? What do we do? Because everything that we do is around the beach. Hey, you mentioned junior high, and I'll have to confess that usually when I think of student ministries, in terms of the investment that I've made in them in my life, it's been mostly high school. I learned years ago, I personally, I don't connect real well with junior high students, even my own sons when they were in junior high, and things got a lot better in high school. But this is graduation season. This is 5th or 6th graders becoming junior high or middle school. 8th graders becoming high school and that kind of stuff. What all are you doing to kind of soothe that process? We heard last week about some of the things that children's ministry staff were thinking. I'm curious what you've been doing.
Yeah, so transitions have been probably tricky. I think we're all trying to figure that out right now. Like, what is going to be best? Everything that we have planned is now completely gone. So usually what we do is open houses for all the families to come check us out. And starting in March, I always drop down and I'll do a couple teachings during junior high night so they can start getting to know the high school pastor. Our junior high director drops down and starts teaching the 6th graders every now and then, just so we're not like some unfamiliar face when the transitions happen. So all that stuff went out the window. So just today we solidified how we're going to work on some transitions, some graduation stuff. So we're going to be hosting like a big dinner for the whole family for graduating seniors. We're going to host that on one night. We're going to be doing 8th grade on another night and 6th grade on another night. And it's just a time to, one, honor them for their graduation from 8th grade into high school, but our seniors graduating on, and then trying to really welcome the 6th graders. Because we, thankfully, I shouldn't say this thankfully, but we only have 5 graduating seniors this year, which is, in a year like this, I'm glad it's small, because my junior class is like 22. But our 8th grade is like almost 30. So I'm getting like 30 kids coming up, which is sweet. So our meeting with them is going to look a little different. We're actually going to meet with them on the beach and do a very different vibe, whereas our high school is going to be meeting, our seniors will be meeting on site, on campus, around tables with a nice dinner, really honoring them and the families. And then during the junior high one, I'll be there as well. We'll have our staff there to introduce them as well. And then we always try to get a couple seniors to really interact with the families of the 8th graders, almost like a big brother, big sister type thing, where they get to really hang out with and learn, or kind of get to know an upperclassman. So we're going to be doing that as well. And then Nathan, our junior high director, will show up and hang out with the 6th grade one as well. So ours are looking a lot different. You know, it's because there's no really, hey, come and check us out. It's going to be a lot more. We're going to host a really nice dinner for you. And yeah, we're going to interact and introduce our teams. And the one good thing that we have going for us is we do something here called Moonlight Mondays. Moonlight is our main beach. And if that opens up, every Monday throughout the summer, our student ministries start on the beach at 10 a.m. and we go till 2 p.m. and we all just get to hang out. So that is a very fun, gradual transition for junior high and high school to hang out together on a beach and get to know each other and hang out. So for us, it's kind of like a cool saving grace for us in this time where we have the beach there, and this is something that's been familiar for many years with us doing. So for us, that's gonna be a big part of us coming together and kind of hanging out and kind of helping that transition be a little bit more smooth by hanging out together every Monday. So
yeah, you know, it oftentimes in the student ministry world, summertime is like a really big time. You know, where there are camps and missions experiences, and you know, things that I know when I was in high school, I can still remember that. And my kids when they were in high school and junior high school, they really looked forward to those events, yeah, I'll call them events. I almost call them a program, but that would trivialize, you know, how meaningful those things were for them in their lives. You know, what kind of adjustments are you making in terms of what you do during the summer? And, you know, that opportunity that has been here to go deeper sometimes than we can during the school year.
Yeah, I look forward to the summer every single year. I think it's the best time in student ministry because it just shifts everything and it becomes extremely relational, really fun. So this year's been a weird damper almost. You know, we go to Hume Lake for summer camp, and we found out about a week and a half ago that we're week 2 and weeks 1 through 3 have been canceled at Hume Lake. So our week was canceled. And then like literally a couple days later, we found out our Belize mission trip was canceled as well for July. So kind of the 2 big things that our high school students had to look forward to are now gone, which for the most part, I would say the attitudes of parents and students was pretty great, to be honest with you. But we really wanted to let them know that we were going to try to replace it with something, and we were going to try to do it later on in the summer in August, hopefully letting things die down a bit and let things reopen a bit more. So we went right to work when we found out summer camp was canceled and just said, dude, what can we do to still get something meaningful? So we're kind of doing our own summer camp this year. We reserved about 50 spots up at the KOA in Santa Cruz in Watsonville. So we have, cabins up there. So we're going to do our own summer camp, a little bit shorter, only 4 nights versus 6. And we're actually going to bring junior high with us, but we're going to separate us out for programming purposes. But our worship pastors coming to lead worship for us. You know, up there we can kind of dictate how big we get, you know, if we need to break down in smaller groups. So that's what we want to do. We wanted to make sure our whole motto was, so much has been taken from you that we wanted to give you some good news of what we can give you. And so today we're going to send out that we have a trip plan for them. And we know not every kid is going to feel comfortable to go. Not every student and every parent might say like, oh gosh, we're not just ready for that. But that's the trip that we have planned for them. And we already let them know that I've rescheduled our Belize trip till next July, the same dates. When this whole thing broke out, I was actually still in Belize and I was flying back right when everything started shutting down. And I would say that was the big thing that students were looking forward to. So they know that it's coming back. They know that we're going to go, so they're stoked. But for us, like I say, just being that beach culture, a lot of our shifting right now is happening towards the beach because those are probably going to reopen. I mean, they are open, but they're not open to sit yet and stay. So for a lot of us, we're just going to be kind of shifting that direction, but then shift to those small groups as well for a little bit different stuff throughout the summer.
And for those that might not be familiar with the California beach culture and regulations, the regulations in most of our beaches in this state are you're welcome to be there for, exercise and walking about, but don't think about sitting down. Don't gather in a group. It's the old keep moving, which is hardly the best thing for building cohesion. Yeah, I'd be interested if any of the other people on this call have had some experiences or doing some things that might be different, might be useful for other people to hear about, just in terms of furthering our own abilities to plan for the students that are under our care and those kinds of things. What you're hearing from moms and dads, volunteers, maybe summer adjustments, promotion things, or any of those kinds of stuff. If anybody has anything, just feel free to demute and jump right in, or wave your hands. If we hear crickets forever, we'll move on. Anybody doing anything different than what Brandon mentioned? Well, I guess the word gets around then pretty fast, huh?
I can share.
Yay, John, jump in.
I'm from a neighborhood church here in Cypress, California, and we actually have 36 seniors graduating this semester. And we were able to do a senior retreat at the end of January, praise God, because then, at the end of February, everything happened. So kind of a tradition that we've done here that I think has been especially vital this year is I call it senior reflections. And basically, so we had 34 students, so we kind of did this 5 different times throughout the semester, and we just concluded on Tuesday night. But I basically give them a series of 8 questions that they do ahead of time to kind of share their stories. So not just how they became a Christian, but like where they've grown up and what did they wish they would have known in high school. And that's been great because we've had Zoom, we've done youth group on Zoom, and we've had a lot of underclassmen come. But I think that's been a helpful closure for our seniors, for me, just to ask them questions. How do you know when God speaks to you? What's your earliest memory of God? What do you wish you would have known in high school? So we've done that now for the past pretty much all of May. And that's been, I think, really helpful. And then this Saturday, myself and the senior leaders, so I'm the youth pastor, me and the senior leaders are going to go and drive to their houses and surprise them. We're calling it Surprise Saturday Seniors. And we're basically going to drop off a little gift for them. I purchase this book every year. It's a repackaged purpose-driven life called What on Earth Am I Here For? And it's great because it has little devos, and it's really short and small, and you can even QR code it. So we'll give them that in a little package, and then each leader is kind of writing a note, or I created kind of a little thing for them to take to college. So that's been helpful with regard to our seniors. Now we usually Brandon was saying we have these different things that we usually do. We usually have a laser tag transition night for the new 6th graders coming into 7th grade. Well, that's not happening. So we're trying to figure out what are some ways to reach down to our to the new classmen, and we're still collaborating. And like you said, Hume let us know we're week 3, so that got kiboshed. Students and parents were understanding, but students are depressed because they look forward to that every year. So we're still, but as far as senior transitions, that's one thing we've been doing.
Yeah, those events, those summer events are so big. Some of the, I was saved when I was 6 years old. I call that salvation, like only a 6-year-old can do it. Just simple, childlike, all that kind of stuff. But God moved in my life the summer between junior high and high school, when our church hired its first, youth guy who happened to have never had a job in youth ministry before. And I always thankfully say that he was too dumb to know that high school students weren't interested in scripture. And so we did Bible study. And I mean, that was absolutely transformative. But the key accelerators for me, you know, where you kind of have this path where I got to figure out how this works on Zoom, where I'm going the wrong direction. So you want to go up, you know, in your development, but it's not a steady climb. You kind of go up and you plateau, but the big ups, the big substantive jumps occurred during the summer, you know, whether it was a camp or a traveling camp or sometime where we were, you know, together, or ministry trips and some of those kinds of things. And so, you know, when I think about the challenges that you guys and gals are facing, you know, trying to figure out, you know, how to replace that in a, you know, stay away from me kind of a stay away and wear a mask kind of culture is, you know, I empathize with you that there's some tough sledding there. Anybody else have some thoughts, some ideas on what you've been working on? Just demute and.
I know that for our group, one of the things we started doing is we wanted to still maintain that weekly meeting, having people actually interacting with each other in the youth group. So every week when we would usually have an in-person meeting, we just did a Zoom meeting instead. And luckily our church has just been small enough to be able to support that. And if there's any other smaller churches in this group, I'm sure there might be, you can still kind of sustain that weekly hangout. And our church ended up being small enough that we could do a little social distancing get together this week and last week, so that we were able to see each other in person, and not like doing that regularly, but every so often trying to break the monotony of just being isolated and actually seeing each other in person and trying to return to normalcy in some amount.
Yeah, I mean, that's so big. How did the Zoom thing go? Did you make it shorter in duration? You know, did kids get Zoom fatigue, or were they so excited to see somebody? It stayed about as long as you usually met. How did that go?
It ended up being roughly the same length, and I think that there was less of an emphasis on the message that we taught during Zoom and more of an emphasis on the conversations between the students. And even with that, we still got some Zoom fatigue where our attendance has been dropping, and I know that for the most part, the junior hires especially have been hard to hold on to. But even if we can just minister to half the group, and hopefully more than that, but even if it's only half, it's still worth trying to get that meeting happening.
Yeah, even one of the things that we were talking about in our staff meeting today, at least I think it was that, there are so many Zoom things I do, but just, you know, this idea that like for this call, there are 25 of us on it, and, you know, there's 3 of us staff, so there's 22 people. It's like we used to fly for 6 hours and, you know, spend $5,000 in travel fees if we could meet with 3 people, you know, and you know, here we got 22. So, you know, these are head scratching times as we try to, you know, figure out ways that we can do better and at least do what we want to do in terms of connecting in some new ways. Matt, what's up, buddy? Good to see you again.
There we go. Yeah, you too, Bob. I'll just chime in. Appreciate all that's been shared and appreciate you guys setting this up. I think that idea of Zoom fatigue, our group, a very small group, by the way, I think we have 6 students showing up to our Zoom meetings. They're just tired of it. They're just they're on Zoom all day for school. You know, they Zoom sometimes with their friends, and I never thought I would hear teenagers tired of technology, and they are. They're just absolutely done with it. And I think part of what I've realized, and we've talked a little bit about with our leaders, is the importance of the environment we create before all this, like the youth group environment, whether it's at somebody's house or at a church or whatever. So finding creative ways, and I appreciate hearing some of you guys talk about different ways that we create a different environment, because the environment makes the teenagers, I mean, most of them act like they don't care where we meet or when, but it really does make a difference. Mostly they're thankful to just be together. But there is something I think of secondary importance, is the environment you're putting them in to have a conducive relational environment, a conducive learning environment, all those things. Zoom is just the same for them, for school, for other meetings and things like that. And so we've been fortunate, kind of like John Horning talked about, like we're a small group. We've been able to twice now gather, and we're definitely not making it every week, but we've just gathered. We had a fire pit, and everybody was wearing a mask. Everybody stayed 6 feet apart. We put up a projector outside and a screen and everything. And it was a good, like you could tell it made a difference. And our plan is to do that for at least until this thing's died down, every 3 to 4 weeks, have those gatherings. But the other thing I would say that has helped a little bit is we've changed our group. Instead of being in the Zoom meeting for an hour and a half or however long your guys' groups are, we've split it up to have a large group time for about 45 minutes, and we do some sort of game. We maybe say some announcements. Worship has probably been the hardest thing to replicate in virtual. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that, but then there's a break and everybody goes into, we just call them D groups, discipleship groups. And those are still, the jury's still out a little bit on how effective those are being, but at least for a few of our kids, they're really enjoying those times with just, it's usually two students and 1 or 2 leaders in discipleship time for about another 45 minutes to an hour. And that's kind of what we're doing. So thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Anybody else want to jump in? One of the things Brandon talked about is the emotional and mental health of students and some of the issues faced there. I'd be interested, I assume others would as well, if any of you have had some of those experiences, just, to be able to share like how you handled it, what you did with that, what you're seeing in your students. Anybody have anything you could share on that?
Bob, could I jump in on that one?
Jump in, Tim. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Jacobs, District Superintendent for EFCA West.
Hey, great to see you guys. And I was on, my apologies, I got on a little late. It was on another call. But first of all, we have 3 kids right now. Well, we've had 3 kids for a while. But a 19-year-old, 16-year-old, and 13-year-old. The 19-year-old's home from college. And he was going to college in Chicago, came home for spring break and never went back. Still not sure if he's going to go back in the fall. And that's, walking with him through some of that, it's just weird. But we have a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old daughter. And you know what? This is emotionally taxing for them. We've watched them deal with the isolation. I think it was said before, the technology only goes so far. My 13-year-old, she's kind of our athlete. All sports are canceled. In fact, she was excited because they were going to kick softball back up again. But they couldn't get enough players for the team because there's still some parents that are kind of freaked out about COVID. So they couldn't get enough players in her particular age group to form the team in the local league over here. And it's like, it's just disappointment after disappointment, right? And we live with them and kind of guiding them through the normal teenage stuff of just emotional ups and downs, compounding with this quarantine. So what I wanted to just simply say to you guys was, man, I appreciate you. I started off in, when I graduated from college, I was a junior high pastor for 3 years. That was some of the funnest experience of my life. And so I know some of the challenges you guys are facing, and I see what the church I just left, because our kids are still part of that church, Compass Church in Goodyear, Arizona. We live right nearby. And the engagement, the active engagement that our student ministry leaders are taking in the lives of our kids. But man, it's a real thing. And for every attempt that you guys make, it is making a difference because they know that it's there. My youngest, I went out there, and what they did this whole thing where they asked her to film a video, just doing anything, just anything. And she had to have the mask on. And then what they did was they compiled a bunch of videos and they dubbed over different voices over her. So she's saying something totally different than what she's doing. And then of course they play it. And it's like the funniest thing, but you guys are doing stuff like that, but it's just a way to drop in and engage with them. And I can't tell you how meaningful it is because they do go through the ups and downs, even sleep schedules. I know everybody was like, they had the itinerary. All right, we're going to wake the kids up at 7 and walk them. And then we're going to have them make breakfast. And then they're going to school time from these hours. Man, that lasted like 2 days or 3 days for most people, except like the militant Nazi families, I mean, most of our kids' friends, they're sleeping until 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. You just get burned out. You just get flat out burned out. So all that to say, whatever you guys are doing, it's helping, it's working, even in little ways. Don't give up on it. Our family has certainly appreciated it, and I just wanted to offer that.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. Anybody else? We got a couple more questions for Brandon, but I don't want to end the topic before we're ready to end it. So anybody else want to jump in at this point? Brandon, one of the things I asked you to think about, before our call today was just, this idea of like student ministries typically in a church, I hate to use the word, but I will, the hierarchy of decision-making, kind of stuff isn't always at the table where all those decisions are made. And what is it about student ministry that you wish, lead pastors, board members, those decision-making people, even church attenders, what is it that you wish people knew about student ministries at this time?
Yeah, this has been, man, I think we'd all agree this season has been really taxing on really our hearts and our spirits just as pastors. I've talked with a number of different pastors now, especially a lot of junior high and high school pastors, but so many of them keep talking about how they feel like a failure. And some of you guys have said it already, but the numbers dropped once we started going online a little bit. And a lot of it, you're right, that screen fatigue is completely real. They're doing everything there. And some people were super bummed out. And, and they're just like, man, I feel like a failure. And like what I love about our lead pastor and our elders is just like, they've been very supportive of us because it can be really easy, I think, in this season to feel like you are failing or that you're lonely or you're down, anything like that. So we've been supported really, really well. So for me, it's just like in our junior high director, we just talked a lot about how, man, just keep giving us grace during this time because, it's been a very different season of doing ministry. And it's great because it's causing us to think differently and try things differently, which is always fun. But at the same time, I honestly didn't think it would last this long. And then once it started going this long, it was like, crud, I just want to get back to normal. But the grace that they're showing us is sweet, man. And how they're rallying around us and supporting us and the way our elders treat us, has been fantastic. And just for all the work we're doing and has been sweet. They actually dropped in and gave the next 3 paychecks have a significant bonus in it for us for, in this weird season of ministry and just how much effort we're putting into it. So I feel like they're treating us really well and just saying, man, this is tough. This is hard. But yeah, one thing I would say this, probably a lot of you, I've never viewed youth ministry as just students. If people tell me student ministry, I always say family ministry. Their parents are just as important as the student, even the parents' friends, that kind of thing. So for us, we always try to tell parents, man, we're for you. We love you. We want to walk with you even during this. So, if your son or daughter is going through a really trying, difficult time, don't be afraid to reach out. We'll do whatever we can. I've gone out and just did quick fast food runs for a student who really wanted something. And they told their mom, I just wish I don't know if you guys all have Raising Cane's around where you're from, but I don't know why they all love that. I kid you not, I waited 60 cars deep in a drive-through to get 2 kids this meal. But when I pulled up, you could just tell they were stoked. And so we always tell parents, like in attendees during this time, like, man, we are doing the best we can. We're trying so hard. We love them. But it's difficult for us too. As much as it is for students, it breaks our hearts, So it's, to me, if you were a youth pastor who was banking on your program or your building to be like the coolest thing ever, then this is going to be a really hard season. Because one thing that I've done for 13 years is I always want to build into my leaders, but just say, man, we got to get in their world out there and go have fun with them and do life with them and do life with their families. So we are still working really hard at that by getting out, and that's been the model for a long time. But the model changed because we no longer have our Wednesday programming on site. And man, we miss it. Our junior high director was just saying it the other day, he's like, I just miss students. And I was like, dude, I do too, man, but don't get down. Don't be frustrated. You're doing a great job. But yeah, so, basically just to answer your question is from lead pastors just saying, gosh, we need support. We need grace. We need prayer, for us along the way. So we've got it, and it's been really cool. I'd say Seacoast has done a really great job of encouragement and like keeping us going in what we're doing in such a weird, funky season that I can't wait till it's done. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at, man. But
Don't tell anybody, but my role at my church is that of board chairman. And I just took a note about the little pay raise thing. I don't want you to get anybody's hopes up, but I mean, it's interesting because you would think that I should think about that, but sometimes our best ideas come from other people. But I know at our church, our staff, our student ministry staff, children's, every staff person we have has worked their butt off, but none of us see it. We see that product they deliver. They're all doing new things. And it's like, you know, how many ways can you say thank you for the encourage them and the encouragement they've given us? So I'm one of 7 votes, but I'm walking away with a good idea already. So thanks for that.
No, and it was cool. You know, the reasoning behind it was we're going into this new fiscal year saying we're going to have a flat budget again. So this is going to be one of those years where we're saying, typically when you want to give a raise or boost up your ministry budgets, when we can't do that, they're saying, this has been a weird season. So the next 3 weeks, we just want to give you guys just a little incentive of saying, great job in this weird season. And I'm serious. We didn't know how much it was, but when I opened up my pay stub, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it was one of those blessings where you're going, gosh, man, this has been a hard season, but thank you so much for that little financial encouragement. It was really cool.
Oh, that's cool. Anybody else on that question? I mean, one of the things I do is I do a lot of writing. We publish a bunch of stuff, and I publish a bunch of stuff in terms of, you know, things for church leaders to read, that kind of stuff. I said the word stuff like 14 times. So that's why I don't do preaching. But in my mind, I want to share with church leaders, you know, the things that you know, people doing, especially children's ministry and student ministry, or as Brandon said, family ministries. You know, what's on their mind? What are they looking for? And I would love to be able to craft an article or something like that to just kind of express some of those things. Anybody else have something else that you might want to add to that? Because I am taking notes. I'll make this a long, painful pause. Yeah, no, I won't. We'll keep rolling. I have one last canned question for you, Brandon, and it's basically this. You know, we're going along through life. Everything is going good. You know, we're humming, and you know, or at least everything's going at least adequately, and we got our plans and all that stuff. And I was sharing today. I had a whole year of plans of the things I was going to work on and try to accomplish, and I felt like one of my kids, you know, built an amazing Lego thing and then got that glint in their eye and went whack, and wiped everything off my table. And I'm doing all kinds of things. I'm as busy as I've ever been, if not busier, but I'm not doing anything I originally planned to do. And I've learned a lot of lessons over the last 6, I think in our household, we're saying we've been quarantined or locked down, whatever the phrase is. We've been safe at home for 63 days. You know, I'm pretty well tired of it, but I've learned a lot of things in that process. How about you, Brandon? What lessons, about life, ministry, students, whatever, have you picked up on over these last couple of months that perhaps you didn't know before this event?
Yeah, I would say, the big one, I think we're all in the same boat, is community, man. Community is everything. I love it. I thrive off of it. We talked about this, Bob and I, a couple of days ago, but I'm what you call an ambivert, where I kind of have both introvert and extrovert qualities, where I love people, but then I refresh alone. But it's been funky with not having that community all the time. And we just did this funky video series for our student ministries. We're going to show it in church, but you know how everything's like curbside pickup right now. So we just drove by a house and we did this joke baptism where we squirt them with squirt guns and that kind of thing. But I was talking with one of the moms there, and she's like, I just miss community. And I'm like, man, that's kind of how we feel as pastors, man. We miss it so much. And I miss seeing students roll in, every single week into our student ministries. I miss meeting with their band to have them on stage and to help them out. I miss one-on-ones. All that kind of stuff has been just tough, man. But, for us, like I say, that family ministry, for me, it's still doing the best I can to get out to their homes. We drop in and do visits with them. And we know which families are more comfortable at this point, because the first thing we did was we made a list of all the families in our ministries and began to call all of them just to check in and just say, how you doing? How do we pray for you? Where are you at? And all this. And that gave us a gauge of, what families were a little bit more loose, which ones were more conservative. And then we let them know. The phrase we use a lot is we are for you. And we capitalize the for all the time. Like, man, we're for you guys. Like, let us know what we can do. And so families will definitely reach out a lot when their son or daughter is definitely struggling, or if they're just struggling. And it's been fun to drop in and just hang out with some of those families, even in their driveway, just hanging out. So that community has just, man, that's been everything. And like I already said, but just equipping my core group leaders to win has been huge for us. I tell them all the time, I'm like, don't even do group texting anymore. Do individual texting, because that group texting is good, but it's so much more personal when you go one-on-one, where they realize you're not in this big group text. It's, man, my high school pastor just sent me a personal text and is checking in on me personally, has been huge. So, I mean, I can do that, but now that I'm telling their core group leaders, like, just don't do a group one, send 10 different ones, to all of them personally and check in and make it, because they'll talk a little bit more via text when you're one-on-one versus this big group. Because if they're struggling, many of them aren't going to be like, I'm in a dark spot right now. But if you're doing one-on-one, sometimes you'll get a little bit more of that out of them. So just helping those core group leaders to win and just say, man, go at it. Love them the best you can. Like in this season, I might have title high school pastor, but you get that title too during this time for sure, because none of us are meeting together. So just do the best you can. So a lot of it just equipping our teams to win during this time, but making sure that my staff are healthy, making sure that I'm loving them and encouraging them, equipping them. I get them their core group questions a couple days in advance for them to do it. They have a whole semester of core group questions printed off, but I send it anyway. But yeah, just equipping our team to win during the season has been huge for me, because I don't ever look at myself like I'm the best guy out there. I don't look at myself as, man, this is ministry's all about me. That's not who I am. I'm a total team player. Have a really positive attitude with life and ministry in general. So for me, it's just going, whatever I can do to help our high school ministry thrive and win, that's what I want to do. And so for me, that's pouring back into my leaders right now, making sure that they're loved and healthy, that they're still going strong. And if there's any way I can support them, I want to do it.
Yeah, if ministry depends on me, it's not going to go very far. If ministry depends on us, then we can go a long ways. We can keep expanding. Matt, you had a question. I'm not sure. Go ahead, finish, Brandon. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brandon. Finish.
Oh no, I was just going to say. No, I was just going to say, when I was saying that, John, you're like right next to me in the screen. I got to see your head bobbing a little bit about the personal texting. So just wondering how you guys have done that in your ministry context. Maybe how that's helped you guys win better, or what that's maybe done in your ministry.
Referring to me, right?
Oh,
or John Wyatt.
Which John?
John Wyatt.
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm telling my leaders all the time, individual texts are gold. Just pretty much agreeing with everything you said. Group text, like nobody chats. I'm like, I know. So hit them up with the individual. And I think us too, our church early on was call everyone. Call your students, connect with them. And I do a leader meeting like once a month. And so we did one a couple weeks ago. I said, hey, let's just recommit to recalling, and just connect with our students. So I think that's been, I think too, a challenge has been, I'm not a huge fan of going online, but I had to connect with students and YouTube and stuff like that. And I just was really encouraging my leaders, like, you don't need to be a personality, just be yourself, because your students are coming because they have a relationship with you. So it's not about the flashy, because we all can't compete with each other, and it's not about competing. It's about loving them. And they know when you genuinely are interested in hearing from them. And so, yeah, I think individualization during this time is going to be huge, So.
It's interesting. Sometimes we think students are vastly different than, older adults are, and I'm not talking like really old adults. I'm just on like any adult that you would no longer classify as a student. If I'm standing in a group, out in the plaza or something at our church, and there's 5 or 6 of us in the crowd, and one of my friends and the Bible study, partner that we're with says, "Hey, Bob, how's it going?" I'll give him an answer. But if he walks up to me when I'm alone and asks me that same question, I'm liable to give him a different answer, just because of the context there. And so that idea of individual contact, I think, is gold. especially if we want to actually connect. If we want to check the box that we reached out to somebody, groups will do. But if we want to connect with somebody, it's going to be the one-on-one thing. Hey, Matt, you had a question about, how we may be doing things related to, students ministering in the church and community. Could you kind of expand the question so I make sure I understand it?
Yeah, sure. Really, I guess kind of what I meant is, so our small group, most of our students serve either within the church or we have service opportunities out in the community pretty regularly. And so many of those have been shut down. And I've realized we have to get really creative. So I'm just wondering how you all have gotten, if you've been addressing that at all, if you've gotten creative in finding ways for students to serve, because the few times we have been able to during all this, the students have really eaten it up. I think it's a chance for them to look beyond themselves and their circumstances. So it's been really, for them, it's been really good. And also obviously for those that they're serving. So just kind of wondering what that looks like for you guys. Is that clear?
Well, I understand the question. Has anybody had that? Has it kind of gone dormant if you've been doing that, kind of waiting for a sunnier day to get people involved in that kind of stuff? Anybody else with a thought on that?
Yeah, we're doing kind of that as well, man, where the community resource center downtown where we can go do a lot of stuff down there. But instead of focusing on just the students, we focus on the parents as well, kind of like the family saying, if you're comfortable, come serve with them. So we've had a lot of families come down and actually do that service project as well, just to still serve. California's been a funky place anyway, just because, we've been slower for everything, I feel. San Diego County, thankfully, we're opening up a little, like soon, like right now, we're opening up a lot more. But yeah, our focus was a lot more just saying, hey, we'd love to do this. And it was great seeing some families were, yes, let's do it. And some were like, heck no, man. Like they were freaked out about walking into a place and touching everything. So yeah, it's cool to serve alongside some of those families that still wanted to do it. So we didn't shut it down, but just gave them the option, and we served with whoever wanted to do it.
That seems to be a lot of the ministries and programs and events at church. It seems, that this next season for us is going to be the season of options, where we're going to do something if you'd like to come. But if you're reluctant to come, we understand there are 1,000 reasons for that, and we'll demonstrate grace and and love you anyway. We're gonna wind up here. Don't leave. I've asked Matt to pray for us here, but I want to go through just a couple of quick things. The first thing is assuming the recordings and all that's come out well, we'll be posting this in a day or two, usually on our YouTube channel. We encourage you to look there. There are other meetings we do. We've been doing some really fascinating things on Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and those are all posted. Some really interesting topics. Next week we have a couple of doctors that are lined up that are going to talk about, like, not just right now COVID, but into the future. What's it going to be like to actually care for and have, appropriate public event hygiene in churches moving forward? What are people going to expect of us? How do we pull that off? So just trying to think just a little bit further down, and most all the comments that I've heard from, various adults and parents especially is, there's a lot of concern about how we're going to practice hygiene in ministry for their children. So, I think that's a topic you may well be interested in. I'm going to try to do one of these about every 4 to 6 weeks. Right now, my target is about every 4 weeks, basically once a month. I encourage you to join in and, participate. If you've got questions or topics that you'd like this group to actually discuss, where we can actually say, here's what we're going to be talking about, come prepared to talk about it with us. By all means, send me an email. You could even post something on the EFCA Student Ministries Facebook page. We check that out, and again, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any ideas about how we can, do something better or different, or scratch the itch that you actually have, by all means, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Brandon, thanks so much for preparing, and allowing us to, interrogate you just a little bit and kind of have you share what you're doing to generate our discussion. Matt, you're a champion there in beautiful Santa Maria, and love you, man. Matt knows my younger son from years gone by, and so I just, that in a parent's mind, that creates a connection. And so I've asked Matt if he would end our time together by praying for us. And thank you so much for being on the call, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Let's pray, guys. God, thank you so much for the opportunity, the privilege it is to serve and minister to youth. God, I pray for our students, however old they are, Lord, for the unique thing they're experiencing that for all of us is unprecedented, Lord. But for you, you know what to do. You knew this was coming, and you know exactly what these students need, especially in times when we don't. So, Lord, help us to rely on you. Help us to rely on your guiding hand, for your wisdom, Lord, for your creativity and how we minister during this time. And I pray we would always have your glory in mind, Lord, wanting to glorify you in all that we do, that we would have the best the health and well-being and spiritual well-being of students and their families in mind. Lord, help us. Lord, I pray for any youth leader here today on this call that's maybe feeling really discouraged and maybe they haven't spoken up about it. But Lord, I pray you would give them encouragement, that you'd help them, that you would bring people alongside them to build them up. Lord, we know that you are not, just because there's a virus in our world and just because things suddenly come to a halt, Lord, you haven't stopped working. And we are thankful for that. We just pray your blessing over these ministries and over your church that, Jesus, you are the head of. And we just pray that in all that we do, we bring you glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. John White asked the question, EFCA Student Ministries webpage. If you're talking about all of EFCA, the national office, just go to the easiest path. It's kind of a funky website, just between us kids. But if you go to efca.org and just type in student ministries in the search bar, it'll take you there without having to click 4 or 5 other times. That's probably the easiest way to pull that off. Hey guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining in. If any of us can help you, if any of you can help one another, you got my permission to contact them. So God bless you. Thanks for working with students. May you realize the reward of the investment in these students' lives before you get to be my age. Bless you. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next time.